Three, two, one, now. Welcome back for another installment of the Cool Kids Table. You can find all of episodes in their entirety at the Cool Kids Table podcast.com. Instagram, the Cool Kids Table podcast. YouTube, the Cool Kids Table podcast. Make sure to subscribe. And I didn't know this, but you got to put the notifications on, or else it won't. They won't get what's the word I'm looking for? You won't get notifications that there's a new episode. So yeah, make sure you do that. My guest today is Aaron Frazer from Durand Jones and the Indications. This is going to be crazy. I can't believe this is happening, but let's just get into it. Let me just make sure that he can hear me. Can you hear me?
You hear me?
There you are. There you are. Cool. So real quick, I just wanted to. Can you hear that?
Yes.
That's my 4-year-old. At the time, 3-year-old.
That's beautiful.
Her favorite band. You are. That's her favorite song. And as a 3-year-old, she was talking early, and I had mentioned that I hadn't told anybody. I just told her, like, hey, that show I do? She's 4 now. So I think he's going to be on soon. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. And so that picture I took, I just sent it to her mother, and I told her, make sure you show, her name's Abigail. I'm like, make sure you show Abigail this. And so I'm just waiting for a response, but I'm sure she's going to be like, what? Because she does not like me putting it on Spotify. She does not like me putting it on Pandora.
Huh.
It has to be YouTube so she can see the song.
Funny, man. Kids love the falsetto. It's a really interesting thing. I mean, I imagine that, like, some of the legends that, like, sung in that style, like Smokey, Curtis, Ralphie Pagan, like, I bet there are a lot of kids out there too that were responding, like, when they were young, because something about, like, that frequency range, it just must speak to the kids.
I was reading something recently about that, how it's like soothing, how like nursery rhymes almost, not in the same context, but just kind of subtle. It's not so upbeat. It's more kind of, so they're familiar with it because that's what they kind of, as babies, people play for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's gentle. It's like, it's soothing. I mean, and it's like, it soothes the soul. That's it, man.
And it really does, because I would volunteer in her class, right? And they're 4-year-olds. They're up and down. You tell them sit down, they'll sit down, but like they're ready to go. It's like playtime all the time. So then when we go grab lunch or dinner after class, I just play, that style of music, and then she'd just be like, and I lower it and I'd be like, oh, so so give her some time to kind of calm down and be like, so what did, like, put the music, we'll talk when we're eating. Like, okay. Like yeah.
That's a quarantine tip right there for parents who are at home with their kids. More Durand Jones and the Indications in their life.
Man, and you cannot be more right. I read recently, this was supposed to be a one-time project.
Yeah, I mean, essentially we were just having fun, man. Like, we were just a little group of friends who were like, we all loved soul music. We loved collecting 45s. And then, like, also talking about it. Cause, like, I think that's the step that really made it special for me, was like, I love listening to music, but then when you can gather with people, put on a record, and after it ends, be like, yo, like, what did you like about that? What is it specifically? And that's a question that I think, like, for until I got to college, like, I think I was just sort of listening to music. I'm like, oh, I like that, I don't like that, whatever. But once I got to college and sort of started to learn more, I was studying audio engineering.
Indiana University, right? Jacobs School of Music.
That's right, yeah. And so are my bandmates. And a lot of, like, what they teach you there is how to sort of, like, listen closely and articulate what you're hearing. So it's kind of a game, It's like you put on a record, it finishes, and you're like, what do you like about that? and it's kind of this challenge for your brain to like peel apart the layers of the song. You know, enjoy it as a whole, but think about like, okay, I like the way the drums are distorted, like they're blown out. You know, they sound big and nasty. Or I like the way the bass was like a little out of tune. Or I like the delay on the singer's voice and stuff like that. And you know, then since we were musicians, we were like, well, let's go down in the basement and like try to write something in this style. Let's try to uh how use that spirit of like, let's see what happens if we record the drums and like blow them out like in the preamps and stuff. And it's basically how I got started, man. It was just the joy of being like, let's try something.
That's you know, everything has its own time. Everything happens for a reason, they say, and it's just, I mean, the group, the whole sound, even, you know, not to piggyback off that, but what she likes is in that video, Durand Jones is just sitting there with like,
Tampering.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just kind of going, and she's like, "What's that?" Like, because you know she doesn't see that like when the like you know in the other videos that were that style of video where it's everybody's doing their part, and I you know I kind of told her that, you know, like, remember we went to this seminar for like parents,
Uh-huh.
and they were playing the triangle,
Uh-huh.
and then the parents were doing all the big instruments, like the big, you know, like a drum or whatever,
Uh-huh.
maracas, and they're like, but see how if you don't have everything, it doesn't sound quite right. And like kind of teach the kids, like, you know, it's not just like, hey, we got home from the grocery store, like let me go play. Like, no, you got to do your part. Everybody's encompassed, and so we turned that, you know, not me, but the people running the seminar kind of like, just like a band has everybody doing their part, it doesn't sound as beautiful if not everybody's on the same page. It's the same way as family, and not everybody's on the same page. It's not as, and I was just like, so
That's a
I,
word right there, man. That's wisdom. That's yeah, I mean, I think that soul music celebrates that exact spirit, you know, that it's the sum of all the parts together. It's not about what any one person is doing. You know, and it's the same thing. It's like, you know, James Brown kind of
mm,
also like pioneered that and Joe Tex, but like pioneered that idea of like everyone is sort of like part of the bigger machine. You know, he probably call it the funk machine. I call it the soul machine. You know, where it's like together you create something more beautiful than you could make on your own. And that's definitely the thing that like drew us more towards the 70s sound that we've been exploring on our most recent record, American Love Call. um you know, our first record was more like uh late 60s, like there's one front person in a band, we're all doing our parts even just the same. But on the second record we were getting into like 70s vocal group soul. So it's a lot of group harmony where like anyone could be doing their own solo project. You know, any member of the Moments, I'm sure, could have been doing their own thing, or the Whatnots, or uh, I mean, the Inclinations, or whoever you're talking about. But instead, they chose to come together, and it formed something more beautiful than they could have made on their own.
that that speaks to that great quote. Like, if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go further, go together.
That's right. That's right.
And it really works well with you guys. And then thing I wanted to tell you is I was reading. This was all when we first. I mean, I'm a fan of yours, right? Fan of your group, fan of your music, the group's music. But I was like, okay, you know, don't want to sound dumb and not. So I do my due diligence, and I was reading that you guys have a lot of Chicano, Hispanic uh, fans because of the car culture. So I was like, that makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
it is kind of, you know, when we're cruising, we play that. So I was like, we did it because we liked your music, but we didn't realize we were, like me and my friends, we were one of your demographics. So I was like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, and man, it's crazy because you know we never set out to be like, you know, we're gonna make like Chicano soul, we're gonna make lowrider soul. It was never like that. You know, we were just uh kind of like making the music that we loved, and it made it even more special that it found, you know, an audience that loved it just as much and just as fiercely as like we do. it kind of reminds me. I think about it like bats, you know, like bats flying. Like they send out these signals, right? Like echolocation.
Okay.
So they send out these signals, this like burst of sound because they can't see because they're flying at night. And the sound bounces off the surroundings around them. And based on when they hear that sound reflected back at them, it can help them illuminate this whole world in the dark that they didn't see before. And that's kind of like what I feel like our first record was. That's kind of how I see it in my mind, is like we were just sort of flying in the dark and putting out these little pings of sound. We were like, you know, here's like, here's up tempo funk, here's like, you know, slow love song, here's instrumental, like all these different things, like hip hop, you know, like post hip hop soul, like all these little things. And then we got all of these reflections back to us, and it illuminated this whole world of lowrider culture and Chicano soul that like we really had no idea was there.
That's crazy because it's such a great song. I mean, the whole album, right? But Cruising to the Park is just that like Saturday, Sunday, you know, you got your ruquita, the chrome is polished. It's just like, yeah, like it's just a vibe.
Yeah, I mean, so that one we did. That was like, you know, we wrote that during when we were making our second record. And by that time, like, you know, we had gotten all this love from the lowrider like community. And so that song we wanted to like in a conscious way like give back to that community and like and salute and just like pay respect to the people that have like welcomed us with open arms, have been such a beautiful presence in our life.
Uh, One thing that I really, really like about you guys is that the humbleness, right? Like I follow you guys on the medias and I see kind of how you guys interact with your fans. You have your Spotify playlist that you update frequently. And then I, I, I I thought you guys were like an overnight success because you guys are so like big already, right? But then I saw that it started because of like the mom and pop shops playing your music in their stores, and then people saying like, "What's this? What put?" And they put them on. So it was like it was an
Yeah.
organic way to grow big.
Organic is exactly the word, man. You know, like now we've reached a point in our careers where like and it's a crazy feeling, it's a humbling feeling, but like, you know, people will like hit me up sometimes and be like, how did you get to this point where you're at? And it's like, you know, it's hard. There's not that one formula. We can just, you know, I can just tell them what happened with us, and exactly like you said, it so much of it was about the support that we got from the brick and mortar record shops. But what that means, I think the lesson there is that like you just got to make the music that is like true to you. You know, we weren't trying to be anything we weren't. We were just like, this is the music we love so much and we wanted to make some ourselves.
And share it with the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like especially in the record stores, it's a place where like, you know, it's about the music. It's not Instagram where like, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're a musician, you can put your music on Instagram and that's definitely going to help people find you, but like a lot of it is also the visual, like it has to be, you have to like know how to like take nice pictures and use the hashtags and like and all this stuff. But record stores are still about the music and about like like the beauty of the record in its whole form. So yeah, I mean the record stores are 100% um uh a big part of like what gave us our initial boost.
Real quick, side note: I was supposed to see you guys twice, like within this time period. I believe it was at Anaheim House of Blues,
Oh
and
yeah.
then I'm from, well, I used to be from like LA County. I'm in Southern California. Now I'm in the Empire, which is not that far. But me and a friend were supposed to see you guys at the House of Blues in Anaheim, and then the group of us go up to Cali Roots in Northern California in Monterey.
Mhm.
So that being said, with the quarantine and everything, I saw you guys rescheduled your dates. We're looking
Yep.
forward to that. But how do you, as an artist, as a musician, because I know like people are going crazy, but you as a creator, how do you stay focused, or how do you pass the time during the quarantine with everything going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, man. You know, like I posted on my Instagram, like, um, I was probably like 15 years old. That like the last time
I
I
saw
will
that.
have gone like this long without playing a show,
Saw that.
and that's, you know, that's that's scary for a lot of people, not just because it is your it's my way of making a living, but it's also as a musician, as a performer, it's like that's how I think of myself, that's how I define myself. It's like, you know, I'm a performer, I perform, I play shows, I travel, I do this thing. And you know, when that's pulled out from under you, you have to there is a moment of like panic. And you know, I definitely like felt scared and felt like uncertain. But um I, during this time I've been working on new music, um but also trying to like not put pressure on myself to do that too. Like I saw this post go around like social media that was like, it was like, if you don't come out of like quarantine like having like learned a new skill or completed a project, then you didn't lack time, you lack discipline. And I was just like, whoa, like why are people putting that pressure on themselves right now? This is like, this is a really crazy transitional time, like for the world, for like maybe even for as like society as it's been, as it's functioned for a very very long time. So like, you know, I'm trying to write when the inspiration strikes, but I'm not trying to like put that pressure on myself. It's like, especially knowing I'm not going to be playing a show until March 2021. It's like, I got time. There's going to be times of inspiration, and there's going to be like dry times and up times and down times. And you know, I'm just trying to take it as it comes. So um doing a lot of listening, you know, more than writing, just doing a lot of listening.
'Cause I saw that post. I saw the one you were referring to, and I saw it like the first week of quarantine, which is when I was like, "What am I gonna do?" I was watching Netflix all day. I was like, "What is there to do? How can we pass the time?" And then I was just like, "You know what? I don't know how long this is gonna last." Like at the time, they said maybe out here in California, at least, they said like April something, like by Easter we'll be open. And so like I don't know if I have a month. And then they said May 15th, and now May 15th has come and go, and they lifted some restrictions. But I'm like, we can't go back to normal. Like we will have a new normal. So I was just kind of, you know what? Let me just enjoy this. So I do watch Netflix. I read, I write, I do my runs, I spend time with my family. I'm just kind of like, it's not a vacation by any means. It's like a staycation. Like I haven't come out of it yet, but I'm like with the new mindset, like let's enjoy life more. You know, this is the other day I read a book in its entirety from start to finish. I went on a 5 mile run. I spent time with my siblings. I hung out with my dog for like 4 hours. Like, dude, this is what life's about. The only thing missing was my daughter, but I was like, I need more of this instead of working 50, 60 hours a week, you know, just trying to like get the things, you know, the materialistic, the capitalism, just kind of like, let me enjoy life. And so that kind of, I'm like, all right, man, like you said, no pressure. Whatever happens, happens. I can only control what I can control. And I feel
I,
like it's made for better episodes. It's made for better, like my livelihood just feels good, even though I'm not in control of it. I'm just like, I'm in a good place right now. This is what I can do right now. So I'm gonna do it.
that's beautiful, man. I mean, and I think you're also spot on when you mention capitalism. I mean, I think it is like something that's looming behind a ton of the conversation. You know, and even that instinct of being like, if you don't maximize your productivity in this time and learn this thing, it's like that's the conditioning that comes from like that nonstop like capitalist squeeze. It's just it just is. It's just like that's the mindset you have to get into. You have to force yourself into in order to get ahead and survive when, you know, rent is going up and you know, everything's getting more expensive, and it's like it's always like work more. How can I maximize my efficiency in this moment? And this is a time when the situation has forced us to slow down, and I think that can be scary for a lot of people, because it's like, you know, it's like that it's like a law of physics, you know. It's like if you maintain speed, like you're not really going to feel a difference. You feel a difference when you speed up, and you feel a difference when you slow down. So if you've been going fast for as long as you can remember, the slowdown can be an intense thing. It can be like a heavy thing. You're going to feel that in your chest.
And that's where I'm 31. I've been working since I was like 17, and it's always been like more than 40 hours. And I'm just kind of like, I didn't know I needed to. Obviously, you know, I don't want people dying. I don't want people putting themselves at danger, not wearing masks, not social distancing. But I just mean, in my personal experience, like this was almost what I needed, a break and just kind of pause life. Like, look, I haven't had income in 8 weeks. I'm like, and I'm still here. I'm good. So why are we worried about, you know, like, oh, the bills are due in 2 weeks. Like now it's been 8 and I'm not even stressing. I'm like, dude, it's going to be fine. As long as we're healthy, we don't put other people in danger. You know, we're doing what we have to do.
Right.
Then what's bills are bills. You're always going to have bills. So I was like, this is kind of like a breath of fresh air, if you will, which was unexpected, right? Like this was not on my to-do list for 2020, but I think everybody going through it together I think there'll be some good come out of it. Like, I think like brick and mortar stores are I see a boost. You know, I feel like a sense of community, a sense of like neighborhood will come alive because just you see that who's there, what do you need, you know? But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you hope, man. I mean, but it's like, you know, the flip side, the concerning side is like, you know, you have these workers that are being deemed essential, and in a way, it's like that label is beautiful because you sort of see what essential means. Essential are the people who pick up our trash, you know. Essential are the people who work in the grocery stores, and who make society run by doing the jobs that are not like, you know, what we would consider glorious by most standards. But in another way, because yeah, at this time we don't have a vaccine, and especially when people are like, there are companies that are not like closing down facilities for testing, who are denying like $2 an hour bump in hazard pay to workers. It's like, you know, there's a movement called the Poor People's Campaign, that has been a source of inspiration for me, and one of the leaders, Reverend Dr. Barber, you know, was recently saying that it's like they're using essential worker as the term, but like in some ways they're getting treated like expendable workers, because they're the ones who are having to like go out into this environment that is currently not safe and like try to keep things moving. So, you know, it's an emotional balance to find that silver lining for me and be like, you know what, I've been touring so hard for years now, I probably needed this slowdown, you know, versus like, wow, there are some people who don't have that same fortune, you know, to take, you know, the staycation I'm taking, and trying to figure out how to like support them and like, you know, ride for them.
One of my great friends who actually put me on to your music, shout out to Ernie, he said, they say essential because it can't say sacrificial.
I mean, it's heavy, but like that's a word, man. You know, that's that's right, especially in the face of workers being denied these small uh uh like small concessions from companies, the hazard pay, the testing, the sick leave. um you know, it's heavy.
Here in California, especially Northern California, right when this all started, they were like, shout out to all the migrant workers that are working in the fields. And then the news comes out that since the stores are, even though people are stocking up, like once you stock up, you don't need to buy more. So they want to give them a pay cut because these produce companies aren't going to make, like, just projected, not even actual, just projected, they're not going to hit their quota. So these guys are the ones that in danger, and they want to give them a pay cut during all this because it's going to hurt their bottom line.
And I mean, that's outrageous, you know. And then um you see Amazon workers, Walmart, Instacart, Trados, people who are going on strike, who are walking out, and uh you can understand why when you hear stories like that.
It, Another thing, I'm not sure how it'll be taken by the audience, but it needs to be said is people are in so much of a rush to open up because they're still going to be able to work from home. This is a poor people problem, they said.
Mm-hmm.
So the poor people have to go work those minimum wage jobs at the grocery store, at the gas stations, at whatever it may be. But they just want these leisure activities, like, oh, I get to work from home. I get to choose if I want to go get some ice cream. You know, they don't want to open up and put themselves in danger. They just feel like, okay, well, if I go on downtime, and it was just kind of things we know, but when you see it, it's like it's the whole me mentality. And one thing I always reiterate is when until we go from me to we, like we're not gonna go that far as a society because it's not about me, you know, it's about us. It's about how can we help each other out? How can we not put um, these sacrificial people because they need to pay their bills because they're gonna get evicted, you know?
Yeah.
You're still working from home, making 6, 7 figures. People are like, yeah, let's open up, let's open up, let's open up. Let's in Denver, what was it, like a month ago, where the nurses had to stand in front of them so they couldn't block the entrances to hospitals. Like, this is America. This is not what they meant by, you know, freedom of liberty. You know, these are the people putting in the most danger, you know, at the hospitals.
Yes, indeed, man. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Um, One thing I wanted to touch on was I saw your involvement in the Last Prisoner Project. Can you elaborate on that as far as like what it is and how it goes about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Last Prisoner Project, I believe, was started in Denver. I might be wrong about that, but I think it started in Denver. And essentially, its goal is to get people out of prison who are currently serving sentences for nonviolent crimes, like revolving around cannabis, you know, revolving around weed. And um, yeah, I posted online, but you know, there's like a kind of a refrain going around the internet that's like, you know, when these dispensaries start looking like an Apple store, it's time to let a lot of people out of prison, right? Because it's like, you know, these people are sitting in jail while an industry, a legalized industry is popping up. And you do see a discrepancy between the people who are sort of at the helm of this rising legalized industry, and the people who are sitting in jail, who are mostly people of color, and mostly low income people. So the Last Prisoner Project is it's to free the people who are in prison, do the nonviolent cannabis crimes, especially in the face of this pandemic that's happening right now. Because like you hear these stories of, you know, there's nowhere to wash your hands. There's like cells that have way too many people in them. It's like if someone gets sick, maybe at some point they get removed from, excuse me, the facility, but they don't go in and clean the cell that they were in. They might put another person in there. And it's like, um if you are in prison right now, this it it seems like you're a sitting duck. And so it's like not only is it time anyway for these people to be out of prison, but in the face of totally unsafe conditions, potential death sentence really by sitting in prison during this pandemic. um, we want to get them home to their family. So that's the Last Prisoner Project. They had approached me to do a small like video acoustic session representing the indications, and I said yeah, because um, it feels like a worthy cause to me, a great cause, a great idea. And um, like we were saying earlier, trying to figure out how to support people in this time with what I know how to do. And I'm not a politician. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not a like data expert or whatever. I'm a musician, and so if I can use my music for a good cause like that, I'm gonna.
That's beautiful. And I've shared this story on air before. I had an associate who had, I believe it was a nephew in Georgia, and he got caught with an eighth of weed, and he did 2 years prison. And here in California, like I got pulled over multiple times with marijuana. The cop would just be like, "What's that?" And I just came from the dispensary. Here's my card. Here's like, okay, go on. Like this is a nonviolent crime. We got people behind cages, and it costs more to put a prisoner in jail than it does to house them, than it does to put into our public education, to fix our roads. Like if it wasn't a for-profit corporation, for-profit prisons should be illegal. People shouldn't be profiting off of somebody else's what is the word? Not extortion, but like because in some of these states, I'm not sure if he had to work for free labor, but it's modern day slavery. They work for pennies on the day, and then the prisoner gets paid more. They spend like $10 on average on them. They get paid like 900 from the
Mm-hmm.
federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, where do you start? It's just crazy. So that's it's really good that you took part in that, spread the word, because it's just like you said, it's time. It's legal. Most of America wants it legal.
Mm-hmm.
And for these people to be sitting behind bars for a nonviolent quote unquote crime is absurd.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at on like the Last Prisoner project, which the website, you can go to lastprisonerproject.org. They say that $47 billion are spent annually on the war on drugs, right? So if you think about like the recent like stimulus package that happened in the US, and it's like um all these conversations about like, well, how are you going to pay for this, how are you going to pay for that? It's like there is money, and it's like how much of that could be spent doing other things, could be spent like I hear all the time in Los Angeles about like the homeless population, or in San Francisco, or all up everywhere. um or rehabilitation, like in anything, any host of social programs. So yeah, lastprisonerproject.org. I think it's one of many organizations that seem like they're trying to like use this moment of change to try and like come out the other side of this thing with this country change for the better.
Yeah, I applaud you for that. I applaud them. It's, I mean, I don't, we talking of politics on here, but like you said, I'm not a politician. The audience knows that. Like, I don't know anything about nothing. But it's like,
Do you normally like talk a lot of politics on the podcast?
depending on the guest, if they feel like going that way, we'll go that way. I'll let the audience know, like not for the other person, but on my own behalf. Like I'm an idiot. Like check the data. I can share what I know, what I've read.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with it, show me what you've read, whatever. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm not trying to influence them in any way. It's just like, this is what I believe as an illegal immigrant in Southern California. This is what I know. So when you tell me like race isn't an issue, stereotypes don't exist, like, no, I've dealt with all that. So I'll share my own stories the guests will share their stories. Some guests from the moment it starts or before, they'll be like, don't go into politics. I don't know nothing. I mean, me neither, but I'm just not afraid to put my opinion out there.
But you know your experience, you know, and like I think there is value in being like, this is my experience, this is my cousin's experience, this is my friend's experience, you know, and you all you can do is kind of learn as much as you can and uh, like reflect the world around you and like share what you know.
That's what I try to do. And that's what, I mean, it could go anywhere. You know, some people are like, oh, they'll say a political statement and they'll be like, but I don't want to get into politics. Like, cool, I respect it. So it's wherever people want to take it. Because what I always say, like, especially in the DMs, right? I like to conversate with fans when the time allows. And right now, during quarantine, it kind of allows it. They tell me, but what can we change? And that's one conversation that everybody's like, where do we start? I love that conversation because I go, start on one thing and let people know about that thing, you know? Because one big issue that me and my friends have is the at the border, the separation of families. Okay, they came here illegally, but keep the families together. They'll deport the parents, and then the 4-year-old, and you know, not to be like, oh, I'm a dad. You know, that's just any 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. They're representing themselves in court, not speaking the language, not knowing what you're telling them, and their 7-year-old siblings now in charge of 2 lives. And during quarantine, the reporters have no access to the kids, and when they do, it's like they haven't bathed in a month. They got no toothpaste. They got no toothbrush. They got no soap. Like, so it's like, where do you start? Then you have the homeless, like you said. Maybe it's a mental health problem. Well, let's reopen up. We have the money for it, obviously. Let's reopen up those mental health facilities and help them. The roads. How are they always working on the freeway, but yet it's always an issue? Like, let's.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, it's that's overwhelming, and you know your stories about the family separation. I mean, it's it's heavy, and I don't have kids. I can only imagine as a parent how those stories, you know, must feel to read that.
Just it's disheartening, you know, because me being here, just like, what can we do about it? Like, what can we do? And that's why I say we could share information. Mm-hmm. I'm sure somebody that's like anti-immigration will still say, okay, you know what? We shouldn't separate the families, you know. And it's something that I think if we talk about it, we could come to a conclusion. Okay, let's not cage, right? But let's house them together. Let's put them as a family because that's all they have. They left their home behind. Imagine how bad it has to be to want to come and risk being in a cage. That's a risk you're willing to take that you know might be a consequence. So you mentioned the war on drugs. There's a great meme. The war on drugs, the drugs won, guys. Like, this is not you make the war on terror, like things that will never be won. So just you can continue pushing that idea. I'm not for like legalization of all drugs, but I'm open to the discussion of it. You know, let the smart people figure it out. Like, hey, let the data run its course. Have a city that, I think Philadelphia was supposed to be trying it out. But something where like, okay, this works because they have these centers where you could come and you won't overdose on crack or whatever, heroin. They start limiting your supply. So I know it sounds absurd to some people, be like, what the hell, you want to give them drugs? Like, no, we're trying to rehabilitate people like prisons are supposed to. They're not supposed to come out worse. Why in other countries they have like, they learn a code, they learn a trade, they come out better citizens. Here we kind of want to cycle them through so that they're never empty. And like I said, it's just, where do you start? And it sucks that it's 2020, greatest country in the existence of the human race, and we have these issues that are almost simple if you were to say, okay, let's not have for-profit prisons. Obviously, somebody's benefiting out of the what's the word? It's not extortion, but when you take advantage of somebody, like exploitation of a demographic in an area. People smoke weed everywhere, but the cops are just parked in the hood all the time. So you're going to catch the low-income families smoking, whereas in the suburbs, like you said, they have an Apple store that's pretty much selling cannabis.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, man. I mean, I think and then it's like, once you start, I can feel it. It's like, once you start going down this hole, it starts to spiral and it starts to feel bigger and bigger. And you're like, what can I do? There's so many issues. But you said something earlier, about like sort of your perspective change in this time of quarantine, talking about how you feel more neighborhood oriented at this time. And I think that's probably the answer. People probably, uh you know more knowledgeable than me would probably say, like, start in your neighborhood, start in your community, like this sort of like top down changes. It seems like at the moment, unfortunately, the system is sort of jammed up to the point where it feels very hard to change any one huge thing. But I see people like in Brooklyn, like running for local office, people our age, or slightly older, like you see like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in the Bronx. And it's just sort of like she saw, like, her community, and that's where she started, was just like, how do I make my neighborhood the best it can be? And then it's like, how do I make my borough the best it can be? And then how do I make my city? And now it's like, how do I make my country the best it can be? So, I think starting small and trying to make your community, your immediate community, like, as good as it can be, is probably a way forward.
not to plug myself, but I had a quote for this. I made a 20 challenges for this year, right? Called the 2020 Vision. Made an episode for that. But I had a quote that's everybody wants to change the world. But in order to change the world, you got to change the world around you. And in order to change the world around you, you got to change yourself. And that's, to me at least, it's helped me because I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to make myself a better person, better father, better sibling, better son, better friend, better acquaintance, better podcast. I'm just trying to be better. I'm not trying to be better than somebody else. I just want to be better than I was yesterday, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And it's been 5 months, right? Things aren't great right now, but we're surviving. We're not thriving, but we're surviving. And people reach out to me like, hey, what are you doing? Like, everything's going really good for you. And I'm just like, I'm just doing what I need to do. I'm not worried about what so and so is doing, how their show started 3 months ago and they got 10,000. Like, I'm worried about what I do.
Mhm.
I don't go to work and worry about what other people are doing. I just focus on what I have to do. I don't worry about so and so not spending time with their kid. I spend time with my kid because that's my favorite thing to do. I take that over anything. So I just do what I like to do. And it's crazy because I see the change in such a short time. So I'm like, I'm not trying to influence anybody. But if I could change somebody's perspective, that's already a win. Just by them saying, hey, what you're doing is obviously working for you. So let me try it for myself. Because at the end of the day, me being better does not affect them in any way. Them being better does not affect me in any way. So it's all about, I say, it sucks to say, but you got to be a little selfish sometimes because me focusing on myself has made me better.
Mm.
Whereas if I'm focused on other people, you're never going to win. You're never going to change somebody else.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I see that for sure. I mean, I think that, like, as we've like gotten bigger as a band, and started to make it our career, all of a sudden you kind of see it's like a mountain. The sort of higher up you get on the mountain, the less room there is, right? And I think that can definitely, if you focus on, only on that, of just the climbing, I gotta be on the very top, I gotta be on the top, then you start to like spend a lot of time and energy trying to, like, make sure nobody's crowding you out of that space. And it's toxic competition. And that's a really hard thing to unlearn. That's a thing I have to remind myself of all the time, to be like, you're running your own race. And the things that you get are gonna come in their own time. And it's not necessarily like, they call it zero sum,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, I get this thing, that means you don't get this thing. There are some things like that, but in general, it's not so much like that. It's like it really it, you can really feel better walking around when you start to shift the focus away from like um from that kind of like competitive mindset into like into focusing on your race.
And I felt like meditation has helped me. That was one of the challenges, 10 minutes daily. And I just kind of put myself in perspective because it, it allows you to kind of focus on what's important. At the end of the day, yeah, granted, I enjoy making the show. If one person or 1,000 listens, it doesn't make that much of a difference, right? At the end of the day, I turn off my laptop and I go play with my kid. That's when I'm happy. Like, this is great. This is memorable. I'm going to enjoy this, cherish this the rest of my life. But if, let's say, I were to stop in 5 years, I wouldn't stop hanging out with my dog. Like, so focusing on what's important and then saying like, okay, podcasting is a hobby. I enjoy this. Yeah, it's going really great, but it might not always be going great. Mm-hmm. It might just lose listeners for, things happen. TV shows were great and then they stopped being great. People stopped listening. So I'm like, you know what? Let that be one of the things you do. Like I tell people, oh, you're a podcaster. I'm not a podcaster. I'm Hector. One of the things I do is podcast. Like I'm a father. That first and foremost, that's what I am. If you want to label me, I'm a father. I'm a papi actually, because that's what she called me. So, but this is all just extra. I have a lot of little dumb quotes, but I say Abigail is life. The rest is just details.
Mm-hmm. It's cool, man. It's beautiful. I mean, it seems like to have your feet, grounded like that. It seems like a very steady place to be.
Wasn't always like that, Aaron. I made some good money early on. I started bartending at 20. I was the guy. I still have it, but I was the guy with the BMW, with the gold and fancy chains, with the fancy watch. And looking back now, I'm like, who were you, dude? That wasn't you. But like you said, I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. Mm-hmm. We might get into that. Let's see. I grew up on rap. So what do you see on rap videos? Nice cars, big chains. So I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want. And then it took me a few years to realize I got all that. And I wasn't happy. Like, that didn't represent who I was. That's not who I am as a person. So it took years to realize, like, hey, like, you could still enjoy the music. It's great music. But you don't need to do all that extra stuff. That's not who you are. That doesn't bring happiness. It was just, I thought that was growing up poor, right? Like growing up very poor. I thought I wrote this in a journal, like in 2005, I believe. I was a junior. Like, once I have a BMW, I made it in life. And that came at 21 years old, and I thought I made it in life. And I was like, dude, this is nothing. This is a car. Now I drive a car older than me for the gas mileage. And I'm like, it's the same thing, the same trip. I get better mileage, so I'm happier. But one thing I wanted to mention about rap, you're influenced by Illmatic by Nas and Reasonable Doubt by Jay-Z. I heard through the grapevine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hip hop was also like a huge influence in my life. It's funny, like, I meet a lot of people in the soul scene, and especially like in like the Chicano soul scene, who also have this other side, which is like punk and metal stuff. Like, I meet a decent amount of people who are like in high school, they were like going to hardcore shows, but they also like we're down with like the like the soldies, soldies, oldies, whatever you want. For me, I never really had a punk phase, but I had it was hip hop, and I grew up in Baltimore, and like the radio stations there, 92Q and 93.9, which would broadcast from DC, definitely like shaped my brain in a lot of ways, because those were the sounds that I was hearing, and then and sort of like idolizing and wanting to be like. I had a poster of Jay-Z like up on my bulletin board when I was a kid, because like to me it was like Jay was like, he was the epitome, he was the image of like of like class, of like cool, you know. He was like he was tough, but he was like smooth, you know. He was like uh you know, he was hard, but like, you know, would wear like suits and stuff. I don't know, he's like Denzel, you know what I'm saying? He's like
That's exactly what I'm saying. He like Denzel in American Gangster, like
absolutely,
classy.
he's like Denzel in every role Denzel has ever played. I love Denzel Washington. But yeah, that definitely, I was so sure that I was going to be in a hip hop band. Like the Roots were really big for me. Like probably when I was like 14, somebody gave me Do You Want More? Um and along with a couple other CDs, but that one in particular really like as a drummer, I was like, I didn't even know I wanted this, because I would just be in my basement playing along to Illmatic over and over again, learning all the large professor, you know, drum breaks and all the premier drum breaks, drum parts. And um, that like hearing the Roots, I was like, oh, like you can do both. You can be both. You can be hip hop and you can be a musician. Um, so yeah, I was sure that I was like, when I go to college, I'm gonna like find an MC and we're gonna like make a hip hop band. And that's not exactly what happened, but definitely the indications like are influenced by hip hop, and specifically like sample based hip hop.
You could see it. You could see it. It's like
But I mean, I also like, you know, like we're around the same age, so like the hip hop in like the early and mid 2000s, some of that stuff was also, I have a real soft spot in my heart for like
Lil Wayne.
Cameron and Joel Santana, you know, of like G Unit. Like I think the documentary by The Game is
Ooh,
honestly like one of the most underrated albums of that era. It's seriously like a West Coast classic. And I know The Game obviously is a massive star, but I still feel like that album doesn't always get the respect that it deserves in terms of like the canon of like West Coast hip hop.
I mean, every song on there is a banger. Like he came out firing. It was it was amazing. I remember at the time, and even now, I see friends, especially like on social media, share it as like, you know, Throwback Thursday, or like what you youngsters know about this, you know, kind of thing. Like because that I mean, at least the people in my age group were like, dude, because sometimes we'll be like, this album was better than that one. Like, and we'll debate songs. Like you say, we're just fans. We're not musicians, but we're just fans. That's why I mentioned Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, 2004, 2003 to like 2008.
Yeah.
Everything he was on was banging.
Like
Everything.
Lil Wayne, when I was in I'm very excited to talk about this because I love hip hop from that era. But like, you know, when I was in high school, Lil Wayne to me was like the New York Yankees, right? Um in that he just like he was everywhere. Like he was just on top, you know what I'm saying? He was like dominating. And uh you know, growing up, you know, being from Baltimore, like I was an Orioles fan, right? So
Okay. Okay.
always trying to scrap it out, like get up, you know, get up the division, you know, board and against the Yankees. And you know, Scott Brocious or Paul O'Neill, you know, somebody like that would edge us out, you know. And it was like broke our hearts when like Mike Messina went to the Yankees. That was like a big deal. um so like I don't know, I feel like I grew up sort of like I didn't like that sort of that the bit like, I don't know, the Yankees, like the Duke universities, like that
Okay. The big guy, the
big guy,
Dallas Cowboys.
the evil empire, you know. And so like when Lil Wayne was sort of in his like, you know, sort of dominating period, I was kind of like, I don't know. But then it was sort of like in retrospect, I sort of looked back and kind of appreciated more a lot of what he was doing. At the time I was like, oh man, on like Mrs. Officer, he rhymes like beat it like a cop with beat it like a cop, like a cop would beat it like, you know, it's like he rhymes. And I was like, oh come on, man, you know. Or like you know, for example, when Jay-Z dropped like Death of Auto Tune, um, that was like a really big deal in my life because, you know, the first hip hop I ever heard was like Eric B and Rakim
Hmm.
and Nas. And like that's what I associate as like hip hop. And so as rap was changing and you have this rise of like auto tune, it was stripping away a lot of the elements of hip hop that I had come to identify with. So when Jay-Z like did that, I was just like, I was like, my hero, like coming to like, shut it down. But obviously in the long run, I think that it was obviously proven incorrect, and auto tune is now like a dominant characteristic of of top 40 hip hop,
Yeah.
of sort of like the globally influencing sound. But I've come to look on like what's his name with the auto tune. Man,
Future?
no. I'm in love
T-Pain?
with a stripper, T-Pain.
T-Pain. Okay, okay, okay. That's what I was gonna say first, but he's probably talking about now.
No. Like, now I sort of look back and I was like, he was really, I think he was doing it like in an artistic way. It really was. Even though, as a young kind of brash kid, I was like, am I allowed to curse? No, I'm not gonna curse. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
forget that.
Oh, dude, you
It's
can
all
do
right.
whatever.
It's all
Cool.
right.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to, but you can do whatever the fuck you want. I'll cuss for you. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
I was like, forget this, But yeah, now I see like T-Pain was really doing it. These days, it's a little harder for me to kind of wrap my head around some of the more like, I don't know, like auto tune, like triplet, the da 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 da, hey da 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 da, that kind of stuff. It doesn't do it for me. I think like so many things, music is sort of like context oriented. Like if you hear a song, I don't know, through your phone speakers in your room, and you might be like, I don't really want to listen to this. But if you're in the club and you're drunk and you're with your friends, you're dancing, and that 808 is hitting so hard that like your chest cavity is like rattling, that's probably what you want in that vibe. Like you don't necessarily want some like, I don't know, some like backpacker, some like Mad Lib Talib Kweli from like 2006. Like it's probably not what you want. So I've sort of come to a place where I'm just like, there's definitely a time and place for those artists, even though I do think that like part of the fun for me of hip hop is people's voices, like their actual timbre, right? Like that sound of their voice. And I think when you're using autotune, it does lose a little bit of that. Like I look at so many of my heroes of rap, and it's like they have beautiful voices, just like Smokey had a beautiful voice, or Curtis. It's like you hear these voices and you know who it is because of how they're using their instrument. And it's like in the same way, it's like Q-Tip, for example, Guru, Busta Rhymes, like Jay, Nas, like Cameron, on and on, Wu-Tang, anybody from like Wu-Tang. It's like Ghostface, or even now, like, Kendrick, or like Action Bronson. Like it to me, part of the fun is experiencing somebody using their instrument in its fullest dimension. And auto-tuned, like, for me, strips some of that away.
We're not haters here, so I don't
We're
want.
not haters here.
We're not haters here, but
OG Mako, bitch, you guessed it, love it, love that song. So 2 Chainz last record, Rapper Go to the League, there's a lot of songs on there I enjoy. If Future, some of that stuff I can get with.
that's what I was going to ask, because you mentioned Kendrick. Personally, a lot of the new hip hop made me kind of like appreciate the one we grew up on a little more, and it made me kind of try different genres, just because I was like, this isn't for me. There'll be songs, there'll be artists that'll, like, kind of like you said, I'll be like, ooh, this is a vibe. I can fuck with this. But it made me explore different genres, like, because I was just like, I'm not gonna listen to these 3 songs all day. So for me, I mean, quote, it was good in a sense, that it didn't go the way I liked, because it opened up so many avenues where I had to find new genres, new artists, and expanded my music listening files like 10 times over. But who do you take, not say influence from, but like who do you kind of in new age hip hop, or what do you listen to when like you're just hanging out or that type of thing? Is it like hip hop? Is it the 70s records, or you just kind of here and there?
I'm all over the place, man. Because it's like I was saying, it's like so much of it is contextual. It's like it's what the weather is like. If it's a rainy day, it might be Ahmad Jamal. It might be it might be Chet Baker. It might be, I don't know, Quiet Storm stuff. If it's sunny out, maybe I'm listening to some like disco stuff. I've been really enjoying like mid tempo disco, like not super like coked up like fast stuff, but just kind of like chill, but still got a beat that makes you move. But I love country music. um that surprises a lot of people when I tell them that, but especially after I moved out to Indiana, I really fell in love with country, and like that's a great example of like contextual. In Baltimore, it was just like I was like, this isn't. I don't really get it. But once you're out in Indiana, you're in the Midwest, and it's sort of like you hear it in its natural habitat. You can really start to see the beauty and the value of it. I made a mix for my friend's road trip that they were doing. They were doing like a photography zine, thing of New Mexico, and I put a lot of country songs on it, even though like these are like huge, like very knowledgeable like soul collectors, soul heads. But I put a lot of country music on there because I've done that driving in New Mexico, and it's so open and spacious and so majestic out there that like some of the sound of like of country music can it hits differently, man. I mean, that's as the kids say, like it hits different when you're in the place where it makes sense for the music, or food, for example. If you are like this is probably going to upset some people, but I don't love the taste of coconut, for
Yeah,
example.
me neither.
It's a controversial take. I got to be
It
careful
is.
where I lay down. But if I, like we played a show, we played a festival in Mexico, and we went down there, and I'm like in Mexico, I'm like on the beach, and my sweetheart gets like a drink with coconut, and it's like in that moment, it made sense. Like in my brain, I tasted. I was like, okay, like this is where coconut belongs. But yeah, it's all about where I'm at physically, where I'm at emotionally, what my environment.
I gotta ask for a favor then. Country is something that I've tried, but like maybe it's for me, it's not relatable in a sense. And I've given it numerous tries over the years, over the last 5, 6 years, and I can't like really get into it. Like, what would you recommend, an artist or maybe a song or two to just kind of say, okay, I like this. What else? You put. I like Spotify, because when you use the shuffle, you put in a song, it's things familiar with it, similar to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of, I don't know. I've given it a try, and up until now, I haven't really been like, well, this is for me, or this is something that I can vibe with.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example of one that I come back to year after year. There's a song called "I Pity the Country" by an artist named Willie Dunn, Willie Dunn, Dunn, and he's actually a Native American artist from the 70s, I believe, and he does like country music, but he's singing from his perspective, and that song in particular um, is a song that's like um, full of sentiments that can, I think, be applied to today. Um, it feels like sunny and there is this feeling of like beauty and hope, but it also is he's speaking on some real issues. Um, so like, you know, that's a pretty like obscure one, but like it's on Spotify. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube.
Okay, I'll give it a check. You said "I Pity the Country" by Willie Dunn.
Right.
Cool, I got that. Thank you. Um, just as a fan, I gotta ask, what's in store for you personally, and then as the group as a whole? Like, what's on your guys' agenda? I know the whole. It's a terrible question to ask. I'm a terrible host because we don't know what lies ahead, right? We don't know when the country's going to open it back up. We don't know what the new normal is. But as a terrible host, I got to ask, like, what's in store for you? What's in store for the indications?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're right that there's a lot of uncertainty, but at the same time, it's like we can't. We're not just gonna like stop everything we're doing, you know. So the indications are working on new music. We're working on our third record. I'm really excited about kind of where we're at musically. I'm gonna say about that at the moment. But yeah, I'm enjoying also writing, doing some more songwriting like for other artists. And just trying to write, you know, because uh I know it sounds like a cliche, and like, you know, if you talk to people who are sort of like in the business, you'll hear it sometimes, but people talking about writing as like a muscle. um and I think that it is, it's like a certain amount, there is this certain amount of like magic where you're on the edge of sleep at like 3 a.m. and all of a sudden you get an idea and you run over to your laptop and your guitar, you record a voice memo, you chase it, you know. But then there is also a certain amount that I think you can cultivate by routine. So um just trying to write as often as I can, um as often as, you know, as feels natural. um yeah, that's kind of where it's at for me in the band. We're just writing tunes and trying to get back to playing shows as soon as we can. Trying to figure out in this moment what we can do to still bring our songs, our music, like what we do to the world, not just for our own, you know, satisfaction and our own like desire to like be heard, but also um like we were saying earlier, trying to use what we can do like to help, even if it's someone's having a hard day, someone is in a panic spiral because they read too much Twitter, you know, or been watching CNN or something. And maybe in a way our songs can help bring some light in that moment. So that's what we're up to.
That's great. I, I'm just fascinated by your humbleness because I saw your post. You know, you said, um, I'm not sure how long ago it was, but you were referring to, like, you know, we all want to go back to normal, but we know we're not the only ones seeing it. It was, you mentioned like the ticket people, concessions, you know, stagehands, et cetera, et cetera. It was a long list. And I was just like, he has his own worries, but he knows that those people, just like, you know, you can't perform. If there's nobody to perform, those people have nowhere to work, you know? And I feel like that sense of, like I said earlier, community is beautiful. And I like the way you guys, you in particular, it epitomizes it, like, first and foremost, you know, it's not just yourself. So I
No,
salute you.
I appreciate it. Like, you know, like the more we started to, you know, I started to do this on a professional level, the more I realized sort of what went into it. You know, when you see a show, if you watch Beyonce's Homecoming, I don't know how much time we have,
We have
but
all day. Well, as long as you want to go.
if you watch Beyonce's Homecoming documentary,
I have
it's
not, but
okay.
I've heard good things.
It's on Netflix. It's like, so for example, like when the indications start our show, right? Here's what happens. We're backstage. I do like I'm doing like 10 push-ups to try to get my blood moving. You know, someone's like taking a shot of whiskey. People are like, you know, getting ready, stretching out, doing warm-ups, whatever. So once we're all ready, the someone will shine a light from backstage to the sound booth. Sound booth sees that, they kill the lights, they kill the house music, which is like, you know, it's either a DJ spinning or it's like an iPod or whatever on a playlist. They start our intro music, which is a lot of people don't realize, but it's an excerpt from Inglorious Bastards, from the soundtrack. At a certain point, when like the sort of horn, there's a horn drop, we walk on stage, we wait for that musical cue, we walk on stage, you know, and then we like hit a chord with the music. The music fades out, like somebody from the board fades it out, and we start our set. All that I just described happens in like 60 seconds, right? There's so much going on, like for these moments in a production, that you as the audience, if we do it right, you don't see that. Like the point is that you don't see it. Like the point, if the ticket taker is doing their thing, and the merch person is turning the line over quick, and you're not stuck, and the sound person does their thing, security keeps everything under control, you don't realize sometimes that they're even there, because they're working for the experience of the audience to be a seamless one. And yeah, I mean, it's like we are all in it together when we play a show, even though the people on stage are the ones that are getting applauded. It's like it takes that whole team. And you can even go wider with it, you know. It's like we were talking about, like undocumented immigrants. It's like how are people getting their food right now? You know, it's because somebody has to go. It's like, yes, you are, when you grab that fruit off the little, like, you know, off the little stand in the grocery store, it didn't come from nowhere. It's like a whole team is behind it just for that one moment when you grab this thing. So, you know, it always feels like helpful perspective to know that, like, what you do, even if you're running your own business, it's like, you know, you're still getting in your car that was made by somebody. You're still getting on your roads that were paved by somebody. So yeah, we're all in it.
Damn. Yeah, I like your perspective. And you mentioned Inglorious Bastards. What kind of movies do you like watch on your downtime or on your leisure time? It's one of my favorites. That's why.
I love that one too. What kind of movies? Recently, I realized that there were a bunch of Scorsese films that I had never seen. So I had never seen Casino, and I'd never seen Goodfellas.
Wow.
I know. I get that. It's like people are like, "What?" Like, dude, you know. But yeah, I watched The Irishman on Netflix, and I was like, first of all, you know, it's very long,
Very.
but it's a fun watch for me because I love gangster films.
Same.
I love the style. I love the soundtrack. You know, I got, like, you know, part of my family is from Italy, and I enjoy I enjoy the vibe, right? So yeah, I've been working my way. I've been working my way through some of those Scorsese films.
That's cool. So some of those are my favorites, and I always, I don't know why, be it the way I was raised, like in the neighborhood, you know, kind of thing, where I always appreciate those films because, you know, a lot of times it's like take care of their community. You know, they'll do their thing, but they take care of their people.
Mm-hmm.
And like A Bronx Tale, I just rewatched during the quarantine, and like some of these scenes where they're just so, like, people are like, oh my god, it's such a, like, a show. I'm like, no, these things happen, you know, like the whole now you can't leave, and
Uh-huh.
just like those type of things. I really enjoy gangster films as well. What did I see the other day? I saw The Untouchables recently with
Nice.
Robert De Niro,
Uh,
and then
and
I
it's funny,
can't.
you know, like a lot of times they like play basically the same characters. You know what I'm saying? Like Joe Pesci plays a mean little guy in like every film, and it's all. I mean, but it's awesome. It's fun. It's like
It works.
it works. Yeah.
Which one would I recommend? The one, it's on Netflix. Tom Hardy. Not the. I think he just came out with a new movie called something with Al Capone. I haven't seen that, but the Tom Hardy one on Netflix is pretty good.
I wonder what is no, that's not where he's playing Whitey Bulger.
No, because he's playing two brothers. He
He,
plays both characters. Yeah,
okay, got it.
two
No,
switch
haven't
brothers.
heard. That sounds cool.
I can go on forever, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, I like comedies too. I mean, I don't like horror movies, I will say. And I know that there are it's funny, man. I've met through this music and like, you know, even like the style, you know, that the band has that I have, like I've met a lot of a lot of girls that have like, you know, this sort of like distinct, it's somewhere between rockabilly and like um Nightmare Before Christmas or something. Like, you know, these girls that sort of like love horror movies and stuff. And they I feel like that, you know, they would probably get upset to hear that someone doesn't like a horror movie. But yeah, like the jump, it's just not for me, man. There's enough horror in the world as it is. I feel like I don't need to consume any more in my downtime.
Same. I'm not scared. Like I'll watch them. Like if that's what person wants to watch. Like, but that and like the romantic comedies, it has to be like the breakup with like Vince Vaughn. But other than that, I don't really get into them.
Yeah, it's you know, it's not my favorite. It's like, you know, if my sweetheart wants to watch something like that, I will. Right now, I'm watching Twin Peaks
Twin Peaks
for the
is
first
that
time. Like David Lynch directed it. It's like 1990, 1991. Kind of like a mystery, kind of like who done it type thing. But because it's David Lynch, it's like sort of it's very surreal. So like a lot of things are just uh, bizarre. It's like you're tripping, you know. Like it kind of feels that way.
I've been watching a lot of stand-up comedy, like because Netflix is like there's so much. Just watching old stuff and just trying to in the moment you at least forget things and you're like laughing, and I feel like that's a good feeling. So let's keep doing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I go back to The Office a lot. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Um, but yeah, that's one that's like I feel like the equivalent of like comfort food for me. You know, as far as like TV shows goes, like it's funny and familiar, and I can kind of like put it on in the background. And it's just kind of like chatter.
Speaking of food, you've traveled. You're not going to upset anybody because that just means they need to up their game. Where's your go-to place for food? Like when you're like, oh, we're in insert city here, we get to try this today.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, because of my line of work, it is like it's an absolute blessing that I've gotten to travel the world and while I'm there, you know, have some of the food. It's really hard, man. I will say Mexico. Um, the food in Mexico is pretty amazing. Um, but also, we ended a winter tour one time in Rome,
Nice.
and we wound up staying there for I wound up staying there with with my gal for like a couple of days, and the food in Rome was like crazy, man. I mean, so good. You know, you could go to like a sit down restaurant and it's gonna be amazing, or you can get like, you know, some street food and it's also amazing. It's just kind of like you don't need to go to the fanciest places in a spot like Rome and have like beautiful food.
Do you accompany it with a little wine, little red vino out there?
You gotta
Yeah.
have wine, man. If you're like throwing down some real like, you know, Italian like carbonara or something like that, yeah, you gotta get some wine.
I don't want to get you in trouble, so you don't have to answer. But if you drink, what's your like drink of choice? You mentioned whiskey earlier. You meant some
Yeah, no,
wine.
yeah. I mean, you know, I don't drink like I used to. You know, and it was never crazy, obviously, but Um, as it's funny because like when people go to shows, when they go to concerts, it's like you're going to like a party, you know, it's like you're going out. For me, because it's my work, it's like every night I'm at the party. So, you know, when I first started touring, it was more like a vacation, you know, and you're partaking in the party like every night because you're at the party. But at a certain point, it's like when you start touring as hard as we do, for me, it just felt like I didn't have a chance to recover. If I if I had too many the night before and I'm on 4 hours of sleep because we got a 9 hour drive to make sound check, I'm thrashed, man. You know, you're hungover, you're dehydrated, you're in a bad mood, you're sleep deprived, and then it just sort of it compounds. You just move forward in a worse state than you were the day before. So when I'm on tour, I drink very seldom. There will be like a couple places, you know, if I got like a lot of friends like in Bloomington, Indiana, in San Antonio, in Los Angeles, um in Brooklyn, it's like those are places where like, you know, I have like real like family, and I'll let myself like, you know, have a night. But anyway, to answer your question, um if I'm at a bar, I'm probably getting like a beer and a shot. I'm probably doing like the beer and shot special. Like give me a Tecate and a shot of like well whiskey, and I'm like chilling.
Nice, dude. You're a man's man, is what you are.
I mean, I also get down. Don't get like I love like a good whiskey cocktail, like whiskey ginger, whiskey sour, old fashioned.
Old fashioned. I just had a
Stuff like that is just it's good for sipping on. Um, uh, you know, if someone, again, it's like contextual, you know, maybe if you're like, I don't know, on a beach somewhere, like you got a beautiful view and somebody, you know, hands me like a some sort of like gin cocktail that's a little more floral, I can get down with that too. But if I'm just like hanging with friends in a bar, yeah, give me Tecate and a shot of whiskey.
damn, you're a man's man. Um, Go to fast food. I'm gonna hit you with these just quick ones.
Oh, okay. Go to fast food. I
Oh,
mean, I
time
need
out,
your.
time out, time out.
Okay, go
Before we get into that, you're from the East Coast, but you've been in LA. What do you think of In-N-Out?
ahead. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's like it's fast food. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's all right. I think if you're drunk, if you're stoned, you know, it probably hits the spot. Like I think if you're sort of on like even footing in terms of your kind of state of mind, it's all right. You know, I mean, I sort of like, but I also like spent, you know, really important years of my life in the Midwest. And like to me, Steak and Shake out there, that would be my go-to fast food.
Okay, so you haven't offended anybody. The coconut thing didn't hurt people. The
We'll see. We'll
the
see.
the hard thing didn't hurt nobody. But right now, people are like In-N-Out, like they're like, no, no,
Canceled.
cancel this guy. No, I like your honesty though, because see, I love it. I love it. That's one of my go-to. That's like top three for me. Like if I were to get something
Yeah.
as far as fast food, that'd be one of the top three. But
Look,
I like,
rep your, you know, rep your hometown shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like in the same way, like, you know, I love soccer, you know, and people are like, you know, asking me if I have like a Premier League team, you know, like the English Premier League. They're like, you know,
yeah,
are you Chelsea person, Arsenal? I'm like, I'm not from England, so none of those are my team. I enjoy watching them because it's the highest level, but to me, like, I'm gonna support the teams in my backyard because if we don't support, you know, our own MLS teams, it's like, how is this league, you know, gonna get any better?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, rep In-N-Out if you want to. I'm gonna rep Steak and Shake.
All right, all right. Yeah. Do you guys have a team, or who's closest to you guys? The Revolution.
NYFC.
Okay, the red. No, no, no. That's a new one, right?
Yeah,
NYFC.
they're well known. Yeah,
There's a lot of people out here like LAFC now, but
right.
Puro Galaxy.
That's cool, man. I mean, that's great. It's like if you got something to be proud of, you got to support. You got to grow the garden in your backyard.
Yeah. And do you like other sports or just soccer? You
Um,
said Orioles earlier.
yeah. I mean, I grew up loving watching baseball. Uh, and like going to sleep listening to baseball games on the radio because like there's actually something like very calming about baseball on the radio because there's so much time between pitches. The announcer will just like fill it up with just kind of like chatter about whatever. Um, he'll be like, here's the pitch. It's high ball one. The uniforms that they're using are like a throwback uniform to like 1955. It just kind of like chatter about like or chatter about the grass or I don't know, like his nephew or something, and it just kind of lulled me to sleep. Um, so I got childhood memories associated with baseball, but like regular. I like watching regular season NBA because it kind of reminds me like a fish tank because it's just kind of boring. It's just they're just kind of floating around, running back and forth. If it's late at night and there's nothing on, I enjoy an NBA game.
I grew up playing baseball, and I'm originally like from LA County, like I said. So we grew up with Vince Scully, which is like what you were speaking of. He would
He's the master at that.
the master.
Absolutely.
Anything, the parking lot. One time, as I was walking out, who would be there? And then this nice old lady came up to me and gave me a slice of apple pie. It turns out to be Willie Mae's grandmother, and she was so happy. Just like these crazy stories that just tie into the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's like the epitome of that. It's like you might as well be on rocking chairs together in the front porch, just like, just taking it easy. Yeah, I used to watch a lot of NFL growing up, Ravens. I kind of fell off at some point, and then the whole thing with like Colin Kaepernick happened, and everyone was like boycott the NFL, and I was like, I wasn't really watching anyway, so I'm sure.
You got to jump back on because you guys have Lamar Jackson.
I know, and that's the thing is like when we were like making our run, all of a sudden all of these as it goes, all these Ravens fans come out of the woodwork. They're like, we're huge Ravens fans, and it's like I love the Ravens too, but I didn't feel like I had earned that like the bandwagon that season because I hadn't watched in a couple seasons. So I feel like you got to watch also when your team is terrible.
Yeah.
To celebrate the good times.
This was amazing. I don't know what I expected, but this went beautiful. I really enjoyed having you on.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. It's it's cool that you're doing this for you, and I'm excited to check out some of the other episodes.
I appreciate that. Anything I missed? Anything you want to touch on?
Nah. I mean, I've been telling people drink water. That's what I'm trying to remember myself. People. I did an Instagram live. People like, what's in the bottle? I was like, it's water. They're like, you're lying. I was like, nah, for real. It's just H2O, man. Because I think sometimes when you're dehydrated, all of a sudden, like the whole world, just your whole perspective, you just feel down and whatever. It can just be dehydration.
I one of those 20 challenges I mentioned was 65 ounces of water, a gallon plus 1 ounce a day. And now I do 100 ounces regularly. And I'm like, some of the listeners do it with me. So I'm like,
you've been like urinating during this episode, just on
I have a cup down here. Yeah, so make sure to check them out. Durand Jones and Indications. Also make sure to check out the lastprisonerproject.org, right? I got that right, lastprisonerproject.org. Aaron, this isn't a self-help podcast, but we do this thing called Words of Wisdom. Anything you want?
Word of wisdom. Let's drink water. Yeah.
Oh,
all right. Yep. No, that's I mean, it's like what we were talking about, man. It's like it's not. This is not something I've mastered, but it's something I'm working on. Which is like you are allowed to change and grow. Like you realize that like you got the car with the rims and the chain, and then you realize maybe that's not what you wanted. And it's like, but that that was still a chapter in your life. It's like, we all have things, and we were all versions of ourselves that were still growing and still in progress. And if you look back on some of those things and like feel embarrassment about it, or be like, I don't know who that guy was, it's like, no, it's like it was past versions of ourselves, but like try to love those past versions of yourselves, and accept them as just works in progress, because that's what we all are every single day.
Beautiful. Aaron Frazer, everybody. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, man. You can find me on Instagram at Aaron_Frazer. So that's AARON_FRAZER.
Not Frazier with an I.
Correct. Man, yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time. If no one loves you, Hector loves you.
Peace.